All right, guys, welcome back to the travel show. That sounds so funny, actually. I feel like somebody who hosts a show. I guess that's what I am now. But yeah, thanks so much for sticking around. So let me just quickly change the topic color again. As I mentioned, I always want to highlight the current topic. I think that's kind of cool. So the current topic will be in orange. Would be nice to have some crew helping me to do that. But yeah, now we're going to talk about couchsurfing changes. So couchsurfing, yeah, maybe let's start off by quickly talking about couchsurfing in general. I'll actually open my... Oh my god, something's wrong with my internet. Let me quickly check another browser. Because it seems a bit slow. Okay, now it works. Alright. So, couchsurfing. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's a tool that I used a lot. The main thing that people think about when you talk about couchsurfing is, that's where you can travel for free, right? That's true. You don't have to pay for it, and you shouldn't. If somebody's charging you for it, then he's kind of abusing the system a bit. I'll explain how it works, but before I do that, I want to give you the reason why I personally do it. Because in theory, I could afford staying in nice places all the time. But as I mentioned in the previous topic, I really, really enjoy staying with the locals. And couchsurfing gives you just that. You will stay with a local in their house with their friends, and they will have all the knowledge you could think of. So you don't need any Lonely Planet travel books. Especially if you prefer to see places that are not completely overrun by tourists yet, couchsurfing will be the thing you should use for that. Because you get to know the locals. There's other alternatives. There's Trustroots, which was hosted or created by the original founders from couchsurfing. Let me actually show you that website as well. It's actually good to have all of them lined up now, because yeah, you will see why in a second when I explain further. All right, I haven't used this in a long time, and also I want to show you the other alternative. 1 second. The other alternative is bewelcome. I think they have a rebrand as well. Oh yeah, actually the URL is not working anymore. So let's just have them all here, right? The topic is about couchsurfing because couchsurfing is by far the most well-known of them. It's the biggest by far. There has been some changes over the years. So I'm a member since 2009, so I've been there for 11 years now. And I can attest that in the past, like with so many other things, everything was better in the past. Around 2000, I can't even remember when, but maybe 2014, 15, something around that time, Couchsurfing changed quite a bit. So it was bought by another company. So all the people that created Couchsurfing and came up with the idea, they are actually now at trustroots. So trustroots is the website, according to the information that I have, maybe they sold it again now, but that's the website that the Couchsurfing founders created after they sold Couchsurfing. And that's also still completely free. So Couchsurfing, they were acquired by another company, and they're a commercial company, right? So they want to make money. And they were doing that by putting ads. In the past, we didn't have any ads at all for Couchsurfing. And you also can verify. So you spend, like they changed that now, so I can't show you it now, but you could spend like, let's say $20 to be verified for a year. So that way you would find hosts easier if you don't have many references yet. And that makes some money, right? It was optional. You could choose to pay that. You could still use all the features without paying. And that's the thing that changed now. I'm not sure if it's best to go into the change first, or do you want to know a bit more about how Couchsurfing works before I go into the change? That's the cool thing about the interactive show. I can ask for feedback, because I can quickly spend 2-3 more minutes to show you how everything works. Or are you all familiar with Couchsurfing? that would be good. Yeah, I think it makes sense because most of you guys probably know me from my gaming stream. All right, so Couchsurfing, you sign up, you get this profile. So this is my profile that we see now. You have different sections. You have an About Me section where you can just talk about yourself. Because you have to think about the fact that you want to stay with people that you've never met before, complete strangers. And you will also have people asking to stay on your couch for free that you never known. So the more information you can provide to someone like that, the better it is. So I put in like, hey, I'm Chris. I grew up in the small town of Fulda, blah, blah, blah. Link my website so they can stalk me a bit if they want to. I actually put in a complete list of TV shows here. By the way, I'll link that into the chat as well if you want to check that out too. Primarily, I was actually doing that for my own sake to have like a list. So if somebody asked me, hey, what's your favorite show? I would just go in here, copy paste, done. It's probably not the most updated one anymore. I think the last time I updated was like half a year ago, so I can't remember. And then like, you just provide some information. So that's one thing. Then you have and of course you have photos, right? So that's very important. Upload a lot of photos there so people can get a feel. Once I had a trip through Central East Europe, I would say. And there was one guy, like we were already traveling with 4 of us. So I was organizing couches for 4 people, which is a bit harder than for just one. And one guy, he was always kind of, like everyone was kind of going the same way. And we met him at one of our host place and he had so much space. He was hosting, that was in Bulgaria, some Greek guy cooking goulash for us the whole time. He's doing goulash conventions even. So he was a goulash expert. And he hosted a lot of people and we were just sleeping on the floor, right? So with Couchsurfing, often, I would say 80% of the time I have my own room. Sometimes I had my own villa on the beach. So most of the time you actually have your own room in a proper bed. So it's called Couchsurfing, but it's not always a couch. But sometimes when there's like 10 people at the same time, which is rare, they would just say, yeah, well, my couch is occupied, my extra bedroom is occupied, but if you want, I can throw the sleeping bag on the ground if that's fine with you. So that's a cool thing. Like Couchsurfers are usually really hospitable, let me switch back actually. So you kind of want to help out people. If they're stranded, maybe they don't have the money, the budget to spend on a big room in London in a hotel where you pay like 200 euros for a night or so. And I also, in my profile, I think I put that as well. Like right now it says not accepting, because right now you don't really couch surf in Corona times. But you can, you can define like how many people can I host. You describe your situation. Like I say, hey, I play guitar. If you're a musician, it would be awesome. We can jam together. And somewhere I think, here for instance, that's also interesting. So I didn't have a spare key, so people had to leave the house with me and come back when they come while I'm working. They have to kind of occupy themselves during the day. But in like 95% of all my couchsurfing experiences, and I stayed with a lot of couchsurfers, like these references, nearly 600, I had way over 1,000. At some point, Couchsurfing, they fucked up their database, sadly. So I lost a lot of references. But I stayed with probably 900, let's say 700 Couchsurfers roughly, maybe. And hosted maybe 400 or so. And in 95% of the cases, I got a spare key from them, actually. So, but you can kind of define that and let people know how things will work out roughly. So that's why you use this My Home section here. Very, very important part. I mentioned the pictures. And then you have the most important part, the references, right? So references, every time you stay with someone, you can basically leave them a reference. And then you will see with one view, this seems to be a good guy. Or if you read like negative, and especially when girls host guys, sometimes you have this problem that the guy, he's misusing the website for a dating website. And maybe he tries to get too close. And the girl would then write a negative reference. warning all the other girls in the world that he tried to do something basically that was not so cool. So you can use that reference as well, and then with one quick check you can see how many positive and negative references you have, right? So that's a really nice safety measure. You still have to kind of be like use your common sense basically when you use couchsurfing. As I mentioned, that guy, that's actually the story that I didn't finish, I just realized, with the goulash guy in Bulgaria. So there was another guy who was struggling to find a place. He had 0 references, and his profile picture, it was like a dark background, and he had a hoodie, you couldn't see his face, and it looked like a mass murderer or something. So I was like, I asked him, maybe show me your picture. Let me see your profile. And I was like, are you serious with that profile picture? I'm curious why you even got this place. But that was like the guy from Greece who's making goulash for everyone. He doesn't care, you know. But if you're a girl who needs to be a bit more cautious about who to host, the references will help you a lot. It will also help you a lot if you have a lot of photos uploaded. And yeah, if you want to go somewhere, let's say I want to go to Kathmandu. I can pretty much search every place in the world. Then I can use filters. Or first of all, you can not only meet the hosts. So there are 10,000 hosts in Kathmandu. You can also meet up with other travelers. So you can kind of put in where you're going at what time. You have hangouts where you can meet with people. You have a forum where you can ask questions or say, hey, who wants to go to the Everest Base Camp with me? So it's like a big community, basically. And let's say I want to find a host. I click on find a host. I can put in my dates, and then I can use filters. So what I would use as a filter is the last login date, because many people signed up for Couchsurfing and then they just don't use it anymore, right? So I would always either use last month or last week. And from the 10,000, we will probably go down to like 500 or so now, I would imagine. 400. And then you can basically put even more. You can say, I only want to stay with someone who has a private room. I don't want to stay in a shared bed, shared room, public room. Like my very first Couchsurfing experience was in Barcelona. I was sleeping in front of a kitchen in a student house with 6 people living there, and they had to come and lift my mattress to get milk from the fridge in the morning. So that was my very first Couchsurfing experience, and the second one was the private villa in Mallorca 2 days later. So you see, there's all kinds of situations. I want to meet the goulash guy. Yeah, I still have him on Facebook. It would take me a while to dig him out again because I have so many Facebook friends from all the traveling, because you kind of connect, but you don't really stay in touch with everyone all the time. But basically, you can have all these filters, and with a private room, it will probably like 60, 70, 80. Well, my guesses are quite good, actually. So now I would have 82 people that have logged in recently, so I know they're still active. They didn't sign up 10 years ago and never touched Couchsurfing again. And they have a private room, because that's also like, if you say, it's maybe not too comfortable, if you search for a private room, most likely it will not be a couch, it will probably be bed. And you can go to bed when you want, basically, because if you stay on a couch in the living room and the people live there, you kind of have to adapt to their way of living, you know? So maybe they go to bed very late. You can't just say, hey, I want to sleep now, get out of your living room. It's not a hotel. You don't pay for it, so it's about meeting the people. So you should be happy to spend time with the people, actually, and not be like, I want to do this and that. So don't demand, yeah? They will offer you stuff, trust me. Things will happen naturally. So anyway, this is how Couchsurfing works, right? I think that's enough for the introduction. Let's switch over to their blog. It started May 14th. Quite recent. Couchsurfing needs your help. So they kind of used the COVID-19 global pandemic a little bit. And what they've done on this day, without any warning at all, they were basically closing all the accounts or shutting or logging everyone out, and you could only log back in if you pay them. And that on its own, it's not a big deal. Like, they don't even ask for much money. It's very low, very, very low amount. Let me see. $2.39 per month. or $49 per year. And if you imagine how much money you will save by using couchsurfing, this is nothing. Like, it's really nothing. And I don't think anyone would have complained if they would just like say, hey, we kind of need to do that. I hope you understand. And then give like a deadline, you know, like say, okay, in 2 months from now, we will switch to that new payment system. But they didn't do that. And that's what pissed off most people. Without any warning, on this day, May 14th, they just changed the stuff. Everyone was locked out and you could not log in unless you pay. And the problem is also if you're hosting. Like usually if you're hosting, you get verified for free even. So I never had to pay for being verified because I was hosting people. And so some people, they were only hosting. They did not even travel, right? But they couldn't log in and read their messages anymore. And some, or most people, or many people, let's say, they use Couchsurfing to stay in touch, to talk to people. Maybe they made friends. Like, you know, back in the days, you had this Briefpost, what's the name in English? Like, you send letters, you know, and you make friends like that. So people did that on Couchsurfing as well. And from one second to the other, they were not able to access their account. They were not able to read their messages. They couldn't do anything anymore unless they paid them. And that was the big thing that enraged the community. So right now, people are still raging about it, actually. For some reason, I'm not affected even, because I think I'm an ambassador or something, because I've been on Couchsurfing for so long, I have like all these references. So I actually didn't even have to pay, and I wouldn't bother at all. Like, I would even pay $15 per week, not per week, per month, if I would travel, like, if I would use it, you know. Right now, I'm not using it. And that's also a thing that a lot of people didn't like, because many people, or most of them, they can't travel now. So nobody's using Couchsurfing to actually stay with someone, maybe just to chat and find friends or something. And they are charged as well now. And they're saying it's because of the COVID-19, you know, they make less revenue. Which makes sense, but I'm pretty sure that if they would have posted the same text, everything the same, explain why they need money and just make it optional, I think they would receive quite a lot of funding that way already. Or have like kind of a way in between. Instead of just shutting everything down and forcing people to pay, maybe say, okay, you can only read up to 5 messages and then you have to pay if you want to read more. But at least you could check your messages, the sent messages as well. I think that would have been a bit more of a clever way. But now what happened, let me quickly check the chat, is Couchsurfing only for one night? No, that's entirely up to you and your host, or to you and your surfer. The surfer, so the person who wants to have a couch somewhere, they would say, hey, I'm in town for 1 week. If I would be somewhere for a week, I would not ask them for a week, because I don't want to be like too much of a bother. So I would say, hey, I'm coming for a week. Maybe for the first 2 or 3 nights, maybe you can host me, right? And then 2 things can happen. Either you get along very well with the person and it's completely without even asking, like, you just stay longer because you get along so well and you talk all the time, you have a great time, you go on trips, and then they would say, hey man, you should stay some longer, you know? So it all happens naturally. Or the other person is super weird, and you're like, after the first night, you're like, you know what? Actually, I changed my plan. I'm going to the next city already, you know? But then you're actually going just to another couchsurfer. So it really depends on the situation, but there's no limit. It's all up to the 2 people involved or groups, because oftentimes I stayed like in houses that had like 10 couchsurfers or so in them. Anyway, so that's what happened. The community got very angry because of the fact that there was no pre-warning, that they just shut down all the accounts. I was not, luckily, like I could still access everything. Maybe it's in waves, I'm not sure, maybe it will still come. But if it will come, obviously, and I start traveling, and I will pay for it, because the benefits are just so big. But basically, a lot of people are really angry, and they are like, you know, they will go to other websites. So as I said, trustroots, that's the one site. I think the second biggest is bewelcome. Bewelcome is the second biggest now, I think, because they've been around for ages. But couchsurfing was always bigger. When you think about that kind of way of traveling, you always think of couchsurfing. You're not thinking of, oh, I'm gonna do be welcoming in that country. People say, I'm gonna couchsurf there. So it became like a common word to use, just like I'm Googling something or all of these examples. I don't have any others now. But basically, Couchsurfing is the big name, but there are other platforms basically doing the same thing. So bewelcome and trustroots. Trustroots was established way later, but because of the fact that the Couchsurfing brilliant masterminds are behind the website, or they used to be at least, I'm not sure they're still there. I think that site has the biggest potential to be the second biggest, because a lot of people want to go away from couchsurfing now. They don't like the fact some don't have the money to pay the small fee, or some are just like kind of pissed off, and they do it based on a principle. What I like about trustroots is that you have this map here, so you can actually zoom in and see where the people are located based on the map. In couchsurfing, you can't do that. You can only put in the name of the city, and then unless they put in some information in their profile, you don't really know exactly where they are, unless you ask them, right? But here on trustroots, you kind of know roughly where they are. Especially, let's say you want to go to Madrid, but you want to stay somewhere close to the airport because you don't want to bother driving around the whole city. With trustroots, you can zoom in and then find a spot that's in an area that sounds like it's right for you. These kind of sites remind me of similar setups for befriending and learning the local language for newcomers. Yeah, there's other stuff as well. You have like, I haven't used it myself, but the woofing, staying on farms, or you have sites for people that are doing long trips on bikes. So warm showers, for instance. So there's a bunch of stuff there. But yeah, couchsurfing is certainly the biggest. And then on the 20th, they posted another post here. We hear you. You're disappointed. That reminds me of the Warcraft patch. We're sorry that... what did they say again? I don't know. I can't remember, but it was also really funny. But yeah, they basically addressed the issues that I just outlined. Why was I not warned? Actually, I haven't read this myself yet. Let's have a look. The couchsurfing team is very small, okay. The team was and still is working long days. Okay. Yeah, but that's not really a reason why you're not warned. We're sorry. Some did not have the experience they expected. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, why I was not warned? So they say the team is small and they were busy. But that doesn't make sense, right? So you could just make the decision, tell it to the people, and give them a deadline. I think just that one small difference, would have saved a lot of problems for them, because now they will have a lot of people leaving the website. Yeah, and then they just explain why do they charge. It makes sense. They have to, they have running costs as well. So I'm not against paying for couchsurfing, and most of the people in the community are not against that. I only read a few comments where they said I actually can't afford the $2 per week. So that's another topic then. So they really maybe need the couchsurfing or they just can't travel then. Did they consider other options? Yeah, I'm sure they did. To be honest, I think this is a lot of text. Yeah, that's why I didn't read it. So it's a typical TLDR, too long didn't read. But only the first point, why was I not warned? That's already, I'm not sure, they just shut down all the accounts from 1 second to the other. And that's the main problem. Yeah, so we will see how that turns out. And especially for me, for my next trip around the world with potentially 60, 70 countries coming up. This is something I will pay very close attention to. Even if I can still access it, it's also going to result in less hosts. So the hosts might not be willing to pay just for hosting people. See, they should really just charge people that are staying with people people that host, they don't really get anything from it. They just want to help out people. And I can understand when hosts are saying, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore if I have to get, if I get charged. Yeah, it's TLDR for sure. But yeah, there are alternatives, as I said, and that's the couchsurfing changes that I wanted to bring up to you. It's still relatively recent, actually. Well, it's about a month old already, but hey, time